Jesus is Lord and he's coming back. I'm back. Ask me anything, chat rats. Come on, this is your opportunity. Oh, Jill doesn't answer questions. He doesn't listen. Oh, he's just not a good person to have a conversation with. Oh. I should have added a baby meme to this to my thumbnail because that's what the babies look like or sound like, complaining about Joe not answering any questions. So, if you have any questions for me, I know Thick Shades Thicky. He wants us to call him Sam, but he will forever be known as Thicky, just like Jesus Christ is forever the God man. Thick Shades will be forever Thicky. Thicky. So he wanted me to share my testimony. Okay. So maybe I'll share my testimony. It's asked me anything. Jill cannot lie. But Jill only got shut up, liberal. No, yeah, only God cannot lie. I don't know where I found this. I didn't make this up, but uh, that second part is probably not true.
Come flew the Chinese virus. Come flew the Chinese virus.
All right, Thicky, my testimony. Since Thicky is part of a cult, Thick Shades, Sam, the WuhanSam, I call him, since he is part of a cult where you have to have a testimony. There are some cults like that. Everyone has to have a testimony. If you don't have a testimony, then you're not saved, I guess.
Come flew the Chinese virus.
Flu, the Chinese virus. Okay, so here you go, Wuhan Sam. Here's my testimony. Now, when he asked me that, my response was, which one? Because Jill has several uh, dozen testimonies, several dozen testimonies. I'll start when I was in, I had just graduated from college. And because I'm black and slow, like Jesse Lee Peterson would say, um, it took me 6 years to finish my undergrad. No, I ran out of financial aid, so I had to pay out of pocket. When you're paying out of pocket, you can't take a full load. You can't take a full semester, which I think still is about 16 credits, maybe 12 credits is a full semester, considered full time as opposed to part time, right? So you have to take 6 credits at a time, 3 credits here and there in the summer sessions. So it took me 6 years to finish my undergrad. I graduated with a bachelor's in finance and real estate, minor in real estate, which I found out I really didn't need because in the state that I lived or resided, you just needed a license to sell real estate. Um, my first job out of college with a bachelor's in finance and real estate. This is why I suggest to young boy, young man, go to trade school. Go to trade school. Just get the trade. You can get the 40-year degree later, which will help you as far as your um, salary is concerned. Salary increase or salary. You can request a higher salary or negotiate a higher salary. But just finding a job, no, get a trade. Learn to do something. Okay. So my first job out of college, I was working for a marketing firm. This is my testimony. Since Thick Shades believes that you're not a Christian, Thicky, yeah, Thicky, the
Come flew the Chinese virus. Come flew the Chinese virus.
yeah, that Thicky. Since Thicky believes that you have to, in order to be saved, you have to have a testimony. I'm giving you my testimony. I'm also taking any questions from anyone. Shalom, Brother Danny, if you have any questions, ask me anything. I cannot lie. Jew thinks he's got shut up, liberal. We're being conformed to the image of Christ daily. As as I'm speaking right now, my uh, uh, God is changing my molecular structure. He's changing my DNA slowly but surely, very slowly for some Christians, more so than others. But it was my first job out of college. Now, you would think a 4 year or 6 year graduate would be able to land a decent job, but I was uh, started. I got off to a rocky start, hanging out with the wrong people. Uh, Man, my cousin and I were roommates. That my sophomore year, that wasn't a good idea. All right, so I finally made it, and my first job was at a marketing firm, a pharmaceutical company, and I was in the marketing division. That was my first job out of college. Well, that job only paid, get this, that job only paid $9.52 an hour. And back then, that wasn't a lot of money. It's still not a lot of money today. In fact, you probably could not. What's the minimum wage? Around $7. But back then, that was not a lot of money, especially for a college graduate. But it was all I could get at the time, and I had already cut the umbilical cord, which means that I could not go back to mama's house. Wildheart, I cut the umbilical cord. You know, mama's not going to cut the umbilical cord. Mama's not going to cut it. She's going to try to keep that umbilical cord attached to you for as long as she can. Mommy's boy. By the way, Wildheart banned me from his streams. He called me homophobic. Wait, I'll get to that later. He called me a homophobic, racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. He called me a homophobic for citing a statistic or a study. Wow. Okay. But we'll get to that later. All right. So I'm working at this marketing firm. And back then I was a Christian, but I was a nominal Christian. I didn't really have a relationship with the Lord. I would only call on the Lord when I wanted something, right? Those are the baby Christians. I want this, I want that. Let me go pray for it. Now my prayers are different. My prayers 15, 20 years ago, Lord, what can you do for me? Now my prayers are, Lord, what can I do for you? Or Lord, what are you teaching me when things go wrong? What are you trying to teach me when things don't go your way? What are you trying to teach me? That's my prayer now. But my prayer 20 years ago was, Lord, I'm your child. Why can't you find me a decent job? I went through school. I went through 6 years of college, of undergrad. I paid my last 2 years because I ran out of financial aid out of my pocket. I cut the umbilical cord from mom. I left the home when I was 18. I cut the umbilical cord because she wouldn't. She tried to make me into a mommy's boy, but daddy said no. Daddy, who had since left, separated from mom, came home one day, um, back to the house, looked in and saw me there and said, what is he still doing there? I was only 17. What is he still doing in the house? I didn't turn 18 yet. All right. So dad wouldn't have it. All right. But I cut the umbilical cord while hard. There's somebody, if you can't cut it and she's not going to cut it, then I'll cut it for you. That's what Man Can't Boot Joe Boot Man Camp 3 is going to be about. Let me put the link in the chat in case anyone is brave enough to come in, um, and challenge me on anything. Xerxes, whatever your name is, I will destroy any of your arguments. I've heard your arguments. There's a reason why you don't post your links, your Discord link on your YouTube channel, because I think you're running from me. You're running from me just like the Kung Flu virus.
Kung flu, the Chinese virus. Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
People say Jill is mean and he doesn't like people and he's condescending. I've heard condescending and all those things. And I love you liberals just like I love the flu. I love you just like I love the flu.
Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
The Chinese Kung Flu virus. That's how much I love you. That's how much I miss you. I miss you just like the flu, liberal. Bro Joe, I miss you just like the Kung Flu virus. Let me put the link in the chat in case anyone is dumb enough to come in here, any liberal is dumb enough to come in here and explain Joe Biden. Explain Joe Biden. Let's hear your explanation for that. You have an explanation for how mankind came about. You have no answers for origin. You have no answers for the origin of the Kung Flu virus. That's because you didn't want to tell us. But Donald Trump told us where it came from.
Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
He told us where it came. He was honest. He was probably the most honest president that ever lived. No, I haven't lived long enough. During my lifetime, for sure. During my lifetime, for sure. All right. So where was I? We were talking about my testimony because remember, Thick Shades and his cult, Thicky, the Thicky cult. You must have a testimony. There's a reason why my pastor got rid of um, testimonies, or the testimony segment that used to be a staple in the black community, in the black church. Everyone, maybe not everyone, but if you had a testimony, you were allowed to get up and give your testimony in front of the congregation. Well, you know us, black folks. When we give testimonies, we get up there and say things like this.
Because every time I prophesy, people get mad. People came in my church and they wanted to fight me. But thank God I had a gun. Woo, jeez.
So, so that's why my pastor got rid of testimony. But Thicky believes that because I don't have a testimony, I'm not a Christian. So I'm giving you my testimony, and I'm giving you the opportunity to ask me anything. Um, and I cannot lie. Also, so where was I? All right. So I'm working at this marketing firm. 6 years, worked hard. 4 out of the 6 years, worked hard, landed a job, an opportunity. Bills were due. I'm on my own. I cut the umbilical cord myself with dad's help. And now I need a job. I just graduated college with a bachelor's in finance and a minor in real estate from one of the top universities in the state. And now I don't have a job and I need something. So I accept this marketing position in what you call an entry level position, basically. And you work your way up in the company. But it only paid $9.52. So because I was a young Christian and I didn't know the Lord, I asked him to get me a better job. Because I was a dumb Christian and I did not know the Lord. Yes, you can be a Christian and not know him because you don't spend time with him. You're a Christian, but you don't know God because you don't spend time with him. So you need to return to your first love. You need to return to your first love because when you're married and you're in a marriage and all you do is ask your spouse for something, every time you open up your mouth, what can you do to help me? Right? What kind of relationship is that? If every time you spoke to your wife or your husband, you were asking him for something or asking her for something, never offering anything in return, just always asking, "Give me this, give me this, give me." That's not a relationship. That's a socialism. That's a welfare state. That's that's what can you do for me, and I don't have to work for it, and I don't have to do anything in return, but just show up and you hand me a check. Okay, so I didn't know the Lord in that sense, in that I didn't know how to communicate with Him. I'll say that much. So I asked Him, "Get me a better job." I'm almost demanding. You know how the Pentecostals do. Lord, come down here right now and take care of these bills, Lord, in the name of Jesus. You come down right now, Lord. Come down off of your throne right now to this apartment here on Jefferson Street and take care of me because your son has a need. Your son has a need. And God says, "You stupid idiot." When I begged him, no, literally, he said this to me as clear as you're hearing me speak through this microphone onto your stream, into StreamYards, into your computer, into your living room. He said to me, "You stupid idiot. Your wife is here. Your wife is here at this job. The woman I have prepared for you is here at this job. You bumbling idiot. Had you found a job making $60,000 a year, which is what I was shooting for in Merrill Lynch, big boys behind the metal fence at Merrill Lynch, you would not have a wife right now." That's what he says to me now. But back then he said, "No, your wife is here. You needed to be at this $9.52 job with a bachelor's in finance. You needed to be here because your wife," I almost said her name, almost doxed my wife. "If you were not here," she was working, she was still in school. I think she was in her freshman year. And she was working at this marketing firm as a summer intern. So God needed me to be here. He said, "You cannot find a wife. Okay, I'm going to help you out. I know I said in my word, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, but you're struggling, son. You seem you seem to have you're having some issues with finding a wife, all right, and it's hurting your walk with me." So he said, "I'm going to put you in a place that you're not expecting to be because I need you to be in this place at this time because your wife will be also in this place at this time." I got a testimony, testimony. So sometimes God will put you in situations where you think you're in trouble, but you're not. You're right where He wants you to be. I was right where God wanted me to be. But I thought I was in the wrong place. Had I listened to my friends who were working, who were making the 60,000 and did the internship, I didn't do the internship. I thought that I made a mistake in doing the internship. Had I done the internship and I had got that entry level position at Merrill Lynch, which is probably about 40,000, and then in second, third year you're making 50,000, because remember I didn't graduate with my class. So they were already making 60,000 a year. They'd already surpassed the entry level position, right? Or salary. So um, they had they were making the money. They were making the big money. Yeah, for us, that for a 22-year-old, that's a lot of money. For 23, 24-year old, to start your first job out of college. Um, had I listened to them, I would not have probably the best wife in the history of wives. She certainly is better than Eve. Eve was just a mess. What happened when Eve ate of the tree? Let me prove to you, men, that God created you are natural born leaders. God created you to lead everything. God created the man to have dominion over everything except the woman. I can prove that. God created the man to have dominion over everything he created except the woman. Except the woman. Veckel says, I wish you do these hangouts at later times instead of doing it while I'm at church. Sorry, I got a testimony. I had to give my testimony, Veckel, because Thicky, Thick Shades, aka Thicky, you're not a Christian if you don't have a testimony. Yeah. This Thicky.
Kung flu, the Chinese virus. Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
The one who brought the Kung flu virus to the United States. He says that you're not a Christian unless you have a testimony. So I decided to do this stream just randomly, just to tell you my testimony. Now, my response to Thick Shades, which wasn't good enough for him, was I have several dozen testimonies. I can go all day testifying. Okay. But there's a reason why my church at least, stop allowing blacks to testify in church, because they get up there and say things
Because
like,
every time I prophesy, people get mad. People came in my church and they wanted to fight me. But thank God I had a gun. Woo, jeez.
see, that's why the testimony service is no longer a thing in the black church, because of people like that. Because of people like that.
He needs some milk.
He needs some milk. Or some of the, the ones who are actual pastors, they might get up there and testify and say something like this.
If you get offended when I say hoe, you must be a hoe. You understand? Because if I preach on adultery and you're not committing adultery, it don't offend you. But if you get offended, you's a hoe.
See, that's why we don't have testimony. So Thicky believes that you're not a Christian or you're not saved in his cult, at least. So I just wanted to give you some of my testimonies. My response was, I have several dozen testimonies. Which one do you want me to start with? So I'm giving you the testimony of how God arranged my marriage. Now, remember when I was on Carnivorous Ape and he lied and he needed an excuse? I just embarrassed him and his so-called scholar, Todd Malakote, who claims to be a Christian but accepts LGBTQ. He's LGBTQ affirming, but he claims to be a Christian. It's an oxymoron. Remember when I was on Carnivorous Ape and they couldn't deal with my slavery challenge? Well, Carnivorous banned me from his channel because he knew he would never ever win a debate against me or discussion. And I embarrassed him on his own channel, him and his scholar, who didn't know that you could be beaten. Or he claimed that stoning was the only punishment in the scriptures until I showed him Deuteronomy. I can't remember the chapter. But remember that? It's still on my channel, by the way. They took the slavery challenge and they failed miserably. Embarrassed on their own channel. Well, Carnivorous banned me from his channel, but he needed an excuse because atheists, even though they have no foundation or no justification for morality, for ethics, they want to seem as though they are. So he needed an excuse to ban me. He couldn't just ban me outright because that would have looked like he banned me because he lost a discussion or he lost a debate or he couldn't prove biblical slavery was a thing. So he came up with the excuse that Jill arranged his marriage with his wife, or Jill has an arranged marriage. Therefore, he is a misogynist, or he's misogynistic, right? So that was his excuse for banning me, right? But which was a total lie. But what I said is that God arranged our marriage. God arranged our marriage. I said that clearly. You can see it in the video. It's still on my channel.
You do such a disservice when you lie about things like this.
You do such a disservice carnivorous when you lie about things like this. Because I embarrassed you on your channel doesn't mean you have to make up a lie in order to justify just ban me. Just do like Wildheart did. Look, I don't like him. Or Brojo, look, I don't like him. You can't come back until you debate me or until you show your face. No, no, not until you debate me. No, no. He's not banning me because I won't debate him. He's banning me to keep me away from debating. What you gonna do when you come for you?
What you gonna do?
What you gonna
What you
do
gonna do when they come for
when
you?
you come for you?
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for
When
you?
Jill comes for you? What you gonna do when Jill comes for you? Bad debaters, bad apologists. What you gonna do when Jill comes for you? What you gonna do? Run and hide, block him, time him out. If you do let him in the stream, put him backstage. What you gonna do? All right. So according to Kung Flu, you have to have a testimony in order to be saved. In his cult, in his Christian cult, go read Walter Martin's Kingdom of the Cults, where he lists some of the Christian cults. And there's a difference between a cult and a Christian cult. Christian cults borrow terminology from the Bible, Christianity, and they sound Christian. They speak Christianese and Chinese. All right. They sound a Christian, right? But they're not. When you unpack some of the terms that they're using, we learn that they're not speaking Christianese, they're speaking Chinese.
Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
They're really they're really Buddhist. They're not Christians at all, right? All right, so I decided to give you one of my testimonies. Now, my response to Thicky was, I have several dozen testimonies, not one. You may have one testimony, and the first and the last testimony you'll ever have. And then when you stand before our Lord, He's going to say, "Depart from you, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you." But I have several testimonies, so I'm just giving you one, and I'm just recalling how I met my wife. To recap, I was a graduate from a very popular university, probably one of the more popular universities in that state, and I could only somehow land. I wasn't going back to Mama Wild Heart because I already cut the umbilical cord when I turned to 18, like we all should. Because some mamas are not going to cut that umbilical cord. They're going to try to hold on to it for as long as possible. You're going to be attached to that umbilical cord. She's not going to cut it, mommy's boy. So I cut the umbilical cord. So I wasn't going back to mama's house and I had to pay rent. So I had to take this job. I was making $9.52 an hour. Did I say 48 cents? Doesn't matter. Point is that it was very low for a college graduate. And I cried out to the Lord and I said, Lord, what is going on? I'm your child. You're supposed to take care of me because I was in my young Christian days. That's how I prayed. Now I pray, look, thy will be done. What are you trying to teach me? Oh, you gave me the Kung Flu virus? What do you want me to learn about the Kung Flu virus?
The Chinese virus. Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
Oh, the first thing he wants you to learn is where it comes from and who's responsible for it.
Kung flu, the Chinese virus.
So that was one of my testimonies that I had. I have several others, Thicky, if you believe that you have to have a testimony in order to be saved. Um, I have several dozen, and they're more recent too. So it's not just from 15, 20 years ago. Hey, it's Will Kincaid, what's going on? Well, Wildheart says my mom still wants to abort me, and I'm 40 years old. Oh my goodness, Wildheart, that's not true. That's not true. So Wildheart, I know Wildheart has questions about the Bible and about Christianity. This is your time, Wildheart. Now you're not going to allow me on your channel, or you kick me out of your off your channel. I don't know if you're going to allow me back, but you kick me off your channel for giving you statistics and what was found in a study. I know some facts hurt, liberal. Some facts you don't want to hear, but facts are facts, and that's what I gave you. So he called me a homophobe. He called me a homophobe and kicked me off the channel because I gave him what was discovered or found in a study, in an actual study. So I have the citations. Now I was gonna wait until a few weeks now to give you the studies, but the studies are all over the internet. Uh, Walhart, the connection between homosexuality and pedophilia is quite uh, startling, I'd say. So I didn't just make up those numbers to trigger you. Okay, those numbers come from an actual study, um, and I'll have the details for you. I made a video just about you, Walhart, and so I'm going to go over that study. If you'd like to join me, you're welcome to. But we shouldn't be afraid of facts that make us feel uncomfortable. Okay, we shouldn't be afraid of facts that make us feel uncomfortable. Facts are facts. Biden's nominee can't tell us what a woman is. The Kung Flu virus.
There is a photo of you golfing with your son Hunter and his business partner Devin Archer. Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business?
Yes, I stand by that statement. Because I never discussed with my son anything having to do with what was going on in Ukraine. That's a fact. I didn't know that was the case when in fact I found out after the fact. And because I don't discuss things with my son or my family, because I don't want to have any knowledge of any, I don't want to be accused of, well, you talk with your son or you talk with your whomever. And so the fact is, though, everybody's looked at that. He did nothing wrong.
Let me use my voice. There's your leader and thief, liberal. Congratulations. That you'll never be able to get. We'll never get over this one. You know that, right? It's going to be 20 years from now. We're going to be sitting playing chess, and we're going to be making fun of you for voting for Biden. 20 years still. That's how horrible of a decision you've made. But that's what happens when you're not led by the Holy Spirit. The only fact that I got upset about is that you're a homophobic a-hole. You see, he won't tell you why he actually kicked me. Because anytime you provide statistics and studies that goes against their narrative, you're a homophobic. They'll find a label. They'll find something that is emotional label, and they'll put it upon you so that when you use it as your reason, just like what um, Carnivorous Ape tried to do. Jill said he had an arranged marriage, and I don't tolerate arranged marriages. This is the 21st century in America. This is the 21st century in America, a country that was created, founded in biblical principles, not Islamic or Sharia. This is America. We don't have arranged marriages. So he banned me for the channel. Well, actually, I said God arranged our marriage. right? You can go back and watch the tape. So liberals do this when they don't like you, when they can't defeat your arguments. When your arguments are sound and they're succinct, not so succinct with me, but when they're clear, precise, and they're sound and they can't be defeated, they will find some way to ban you, and they'll thrust upon a label that um, or kick you. They'll thrust upon you a label that has an emotional appeal. Right? That's what weak men do. That's what liberals do. The only fact I got upset about is that you're a homophobic. Sound like Mickey Mouse. Homophobic a-hole. Shut up, liberal. So, what was my crime? Citing a study. Hey, PJ, what's going on? I would say that I'm not a homophobe, but if I see Iranic in a men's restroom, I'm running away. Oh, look, it's Walhart. Look who's here. Hey, Walhart, what's going on?
Hello, how's it going?
Well, how's it going?
You have to forgive me, I'm a little bit delicate today.
You're a little bit delicate today.
Yes.
Okay, all
My
right.
head is banging.
So, citing a study is now considered homophobic in
I
liberal
wasn't
law
bothered
while
about the stats, I wasn't bothered about the argument. It's the fact that you clearly made the argument, the 10-minute argument, of which I'll never get back,
So,
just to make a slide dig at homosexuals. That's what I was pissed off about.
so citing a
Nothing to do with the argument.
citing a study. So citing a
It's
study.
not. It's not the study. It's the
Well,
fact that you made the argument entirely. Just so
I
you
didn't
can
make an argument. I
dig at
cited a
fucking gay
study.
people.
So citing a study about gays and homosexuals is now homophobic. Is that right?
No, the only reason you came up with the argument was that so you could get some slide digs in at homosexual people.
Okay. All right. So
It used to
citing a
be.
study.
It's,
So
it's
citing a
funny, Jill.
study.
It's funny, Jill. It really is funny.
No. You're not going to overtalk me when you can't. When you won't allow me to come on your channel because I cited a study. So citing a study that is against homosexuals is not allowed. Is that your argument? Is that your argument, Walhart?
No, my
Citing
argument
a
was you're a
study.
homophobic, bigoted
Okay.
twat.
So
That's my
citing
argument.
a study that says something that you don't like about homosexuals is not allowed on your
I
channel.
don't even remember the argument. To be fair, you said something about.
The I cited a statistic or a study.
Yeah, I don't even remember it. I
You know,
will.
of course you
I
don't remember.
granted you
Yeah. Do you remember what the
the
statistic was?
statistic was right.
I cited a study or statistic. Is there something wrong with citing statistics that you don't like?
No, it's the fact that you're a bigot. That's what I don't
Right,
like.
right. So
Nothing to
citing
do with the stats.
statistics that you don't
I
like.
was willing to accept the stats. That's fine.
So citing statistics that you don't like makes you a bigot, right?
You even accepted the argument. It's
So
the fact that you used it just to have a slide dig at fucking gay people.
so citing statistics that
That's
happen
fucking thing, by the
to
way.
be negative.
A font.
So citing a statistic that happens to be the same or produce something that is you consider to be negative, is not allowed on your channel. Okay, gotcha. What's
Again,
going on,
I mentioned
Todd?
what to say. It wasn't. I saw.
It wasn't Todd.
Hello.
Hey Todd, what's going on?
Not much.
It's ask me anything. I can't lie.
It is Tog because Lizard's in the side chat. I know it's Tog.
It is me. I have a voiceover.
So you have voiceover. So is this Lizard or is this Todd?
It's talk. Why would it be Lizard?
I don't know. It's just
Do you think Lizard's smart enough to do all this stuff?
no. Lizard believes that the Bible does not call homosexuality a sin, so he's not too bright in my
Well,
book.
what do you get stoned to death for then? What's an abomination that you get stoned to death for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About
Oh,
having
Yeah,
children.
and you get banned on your channel for citing statistics. So because you don't like who the
It's
statistics
not the
are about.
statistics that you were banned for, it's
I beg
because
to
you
differ.
used them against the gays in an ignorant
Oh, okay.
way.
So you
Remember.
use statistics against somebody. That's not good. So we shouldn't talk
That
about
when you're being
statistics.
bigoted
So we
against.
shouldn't talk about facts that can be used against a group or particular people or people who behave a certain way. We
Not
shouldn't
when you
talk
create the
about it.
whole argument
Uh,
just in order to have
uh,
a go at gay people.
I see. So if it's
That's
if it's only just to say something negative about gay people, you can't say it. I get it. I get it. But if you want to cite statistics about Christians, you're happy to do that.
I
You're
did.
happy to cite. You're happy to cite
Actually,
statistics against other groups that you don't like, but just
didn't
not
you
the
agree?
gays because they're a protected class. I get
Didn't
it.
you agree that the stats you were
I
talking
get it.
about it was mostly Christians that were paedophiles? Didn't you agree
No,
to that? I
no,
think you did.
no.
I'll have to go back and check, but I think you
No,
did.
so you're allowed. Where's the statistic there? You didn't provide any facts. You just spout out something. I
No, well,
provided actual
if
studies, and
70% of
I get
Americans
okay.
are
So now
paedophiles,
you're gonna get banned. So now you're
then
gonna get banned.
it makes
Bye.
sense that the
Now you're gonna get banned for providing not a fact, not a statistic, but a claim. So if we get banned for providing actual statistics and studies, then you get banned for running your mouth about most of the people are Christians. You have not provided any studies. You have not provided any statistics or facts. Bye bye. You see what happens when you get
That's
these
a
idiots
terrible
in the room?
response. That's a terrible
Okay.
Christian response.
It is?
It
Okay.
is.
That's too
You're
bad.
pretty much just doing tit for tat, Loach's kind of womanish shit, if
No,
you ask me.
I didn't do tit for tat. He banned
No, you
me
did tit
for
for tat.
providing.
That's tit for
He banned
tat.
he
That's
banned
tit
me
for
for
tat. You
okay,
just kicked
let
him
me
out
explain.
for tit
Let
for
me
tat.
explain. Let me explain why it's not, and listen
It's
to the
childish.
explanation. Are you going to listen to the explanation for why it's not tit for tat?
Yeah, I can listen to for why it's not,
Okay.
but I know it's inaccurate. Just go ahead.
Okay, sure. All right. Well, you didn't listen to it, so how do you know it's inaccurate?
Because I can predict the future. I'm a
Okay,
good
you can predict the
prophet.
future.
You've called
Fine.
me a prophet yourself, Joe. It's
Ask
one
me
of my
anything.
prophecies.
I can't lie. So here's why it's not
Hold up,
equivalent.
let me take out the voiceover. My bad, I forgot I still had it
So
on.
when he banned me for me citing an actual study.
Test. Okay.
I did he cite any studies, or he just say most of the people who commit these crimes are Christian? Did he cite any statistic or any study?
You know, it doesn't matter. Wildheart said well
No,
played, so it is now fair. Rules have
I'm
been revoked.
I'm
The
asking this
statistics,
question.
I bring in the statistics that it is now okay because Wildheart says it's okay. So it is now okay to
Okay,
kick him out.
all right. I'm asking a question, and you're ducking or dodging the answer. Did he?
Well, I never said I would answer. You just said
Okay,
you asked me if I would listen, and I said yeah,
uh,
I would listen.
okay,
I never
all right.
said I would give a response.
I
Nor
see.
did you asked me now for a response, but yeah.
All right. So ask me anything. Tog is here. What do you want to ask me, Tog?
Oh, nothing. I actually just wanted to join the hangout.
I just opened this up on a whim. Like I didn't even plan this.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at the Walmart in West Mifflin Sunday
Oh, that's
That's one of my favorite memes.
dude. Like that's treason in other countries.
Oh yeah,
Think
yeah.
about that, dude. That's fucked. Thank God we live in America, right? We
I,
can make jokes about our beloved president.
no, that was from an actual broadcast.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Though, like the irony in that, you know, like that we can actually make fun of that. This is so freaking funny.
Veckel says, "Do you think the demon rat KKK rats will use the Buffalo, New York shooting?" I haven't heard about
I think
the
I've heard of
Buffalo.
it. I've heard about it. I think I've heard about it. I'm not sure if I have or not.
Yeah, I haven't heard about the Buffalo shooting. Um, tell me what happened in the Buffalo shooting. I haven't heard about it. Was it a white guy? A white guy shot a black guy? What? Or was it police shooting? Another police shooting? What? Boki, what's going on, Boki?
Hey, Jill. First time being in in your streams.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Welcome.
first time actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd run. I'd run now.
That was the
Run.
mash.
Never come back. Yep.
So was the victims black and the perpetrator white, or the perpetrator just has to be white? That's it. That
Oh, mass
that's
shooting
all.
yesterday.
All for it to be called a mass shooting, the perpetrator has to be white. That's how you know the perpetrator is white. I'm gonna give you some hints on how to tell when the news is lying, when they're promoting fake news, or when they're hiding something from you. When they're hiding something from you, if they say that the perpetrator, if they don't tell you the race of the perpetrator, he black. If they
Manifesto says he was racist.
if they say it was a shooting and more than 5 people were shot, but they just say it was a shooting, he black. If they say it was a mass shooting and they tell you the race, he white. You'll know about it. Let me show you that. Let me prove that to you. I'm gonna show you better than I could tell you.
Wait. Is this where like when I mean is this the where a teen kills several people in a store, or I don't know what this is. Like I
Yeah,
heard a report. Oh, literally. So this is the same thing.
I don't know. I haven't heard the story, but I'm just telling you how to determine if you're watching the news
Mm,
who the perpetrator is, whether he's black or whether he's something white or something else. If
right.
he's white, they're going to tell you he's white.
Mm,
And they're already going to have his Facebook and Twitter posts ready for you, right?
wow.
If they say if it, yeah, if he says anything against Black Lives Matter, we got him now. He's a white supremacist. So that's the narrative they're trying to push. That it's white supremacy that's the problem. Oh, look at here now. So what is this is so that is what you wanted to do? Wait for Wildheart to come in to just ban him?
Right.
No, you can come in if you'd like. No, I banned him because he banned me from his channel. So I let him come in and I asked him why did he ban me for citing a statistic, and he said he banned me because he didn't like it. He thought I was using a statistic, a fact, to harm people. You can't use facts to harm people. So it was only fair. It was only fair. But check this out. Now, everybody remembers the police shooting in Brooklyn. Not the police shooting. The shooting, the mass shooting. First of all, they didn't call it a mass shooting, even though it was. That's the first and foremost. They didn't call it a mass shooting because they knew the perpetrator was black. They knew his race from the get go. This was in a public subway, several witnesses. They knew he was black. Yet, when the New York Slimes reported on this case, now remember at this point, Boki, this individual who shot these people on the subway is still at large, meaning they haven't captured him yet. Yet, when the New York Times posts this article, they don't tell you that the suspect is black. They give a description of everything else you could possibly give about him except for his race. Police are seeking a man with a gas mask. Is he black? Is he
Well,
white?
to be
How does he look?
fair, just because he has dark skin doesn't mean he's black. He could have been like a Hindu motherfucker.
Okay. Well, then say that.
Or what are the
You
sample?
don't
How
have
would
a
they
problem.
know if all they got was fucking
Dark
skin color? They
skin,
don't want to be racist.
dark skin, black
They can't just
African
say
American.
they can't say that because then everyone's gonna be looking for a black guy, right? But it may not be a black guy.
Okay,
See how racist that would be?
so who are we supposed to look
A
for now?
man wearing those colors, those things, of
Where
course.
a man wearing so we don't know if he's black or white?
I mean, it wouldn't matter what color
Look,
the man is as long as he has the other things. That's
wow.
fucking dumb.
So if there's a white man out at large who's raping people, and you're only going to describe the clothes that he's wearing, you're not going to describe the fact that whether he's white or black or Caucasian, light complexion, dark complexion, something. You're not going to describe that. No, they obviously didn't want to describe the man as black because it doesn't fit their narrative. If you can give all of these this detailed description, everyone there knew he was black. All the witnesses knew he was black. They were there. You mean to tell me the New York Times didn't know he was black? Sure, they
Well,
knew he was.
they also make things nowadays like fake prosthetic skin covers. That's
Right.
been going on for a while. So it could just be one of those things as
Oh,
well.
that yeah, could be. What's going on, Scotty?
That's very popular.
Hey, Jill, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Doing much, like looking after family and whatnot.
Okay.
Oh, hey,
Good for
Bookie.
you.
Hey, Tog.
Hey,
Scotty. Didn't think you'd chime in here.
Yep.
So let me get this straight, right? There has been a killing. The witnesses knew the guy's race, but the New York Times doesn't like that because it doesn't because they're pretty much lefty or ran by the left. So okay, then it's a white man. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that has got to be the most racist thing that I've heard tonight. Like, you know what the victim's race is, but yeah, let's just call it a white guy because for
I've
the
seen
sake
that.
of
I've seen that also. I've seen them called Muslims, for example, white guys. I've seen them change the name of the Muslim to make him sound more European oriented. I mean, these people are the lowest of the lowest. And the fact that this man was still at large, which means he could hurt other people, and they still would not give his race, is even more disgusting. Because now
yeah.
I'm looking for, instead of looking for a black man, I'm looking for anyone with a construction vest on.
well, what type of race then? Because that goes in like Jamaican, all the other subsets in Africa, American, black. Like that's a lot of races to look at for one darky. Just saying.
Well, I don't need to know his ethnicity per se. I just need a better description. I mean, you knew anything you know about him, you should tell us. If he's Chinese, tell us that. If he has darker skin, you need to tell us that. Why aren't you telling us the skin color? That's the first thing that they tell when they call in someone, or there's an APB out or for someone. That's one of the first things. One of the first, the primary things that they describe is the race.
Right, but that's usually if they haven't caught it by like in a sense firsthand experience, then that's firsthand experience, right? But
No,
if it's
that's not
outside like
first.
just
It's
using
eyewitness.
if it's outside using just surveillance videos, then
Yeah,
who's to say
surveillance
that again?
and the eyewitnesses. Right. You had surveillance video and eyewitness
Okay,
testimony.
yeah, I don't. Okay, so yeah, I need to know all the
They
facts
knew
of
he
this
was
stuff.
black, Todd. They just didn't want to tell you. Now, if he were white, his face
I don't
and
know if
his
he was
face.
black. Like I said, he could have been Hindu. Could have been one of those dark Hindu boys. You never know.
Walhart deserves what he gets. He does everything he criticizes others for. Yeah, yeah. You're gonna kick me for citing a statistic because your fans, your audience, can't stand the fact that there is such an overrepresentation in these, and probably the most disgusting act that one can commit in child rape, with homosexuals. He didn't want to hear that fact. So because he didn't want to hear that fact, he calls me a homophobic and kicks me off the channel. Well, then he comes on and he provides his opinion about Christians being guilty. More so, he says most uh, pedophiles are Christian. Well, he provided no facts, provided no statistics, no studies, so he gets kicked. So
Well,
now you can come back, Walhart, when you can provide a study about Christians being overrepresented,
Sorry to
or in
interrupt.
pedophilia.
Sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt, Jill, but could you put forward the study that you cited on screen, please?
Yeah, let me get that for you. Now, I was gonna wait and save it for my stream coming up in a few weeks.
Oh, okay. If you don't want to bring it up, that's fine. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
don't.
I'll get you the actual
I do
study.
have a precept here comparing um, homosexual and heterosexual relationships. So maybe you want me to pull that out if you guys like. This is
Yeah, I
different.
mean, if you have something you want to share, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Did you also?
I'm not gonna get on full detail of this because I have a stream. I'm gonna be reading the whole thing. But right now I'm just gonna show you the place where it really hits. And yeah, it's gonna piss off a lot of people. I know, and you're gonna come after my channel too, and I expect that. But
Mhm.
disclaimer: I'm not using this to attack nor ridicule the group. What I'm just gonna do is just uh, cite what the statistic says, and you can take it to the maker or the researcher for this one.
Mhm. Here is well, pull that up and I'll share it if you'd like. I don't care if they flag this channel.
Right?
Pull it
Yeah.
up. But the Journal of Sex Research, which is a liberal think tank, they did a study and they found that um, homosexuals commit a third of the total sex offenses against children. That's the Journal of Sex Research. That's not a Christian publication,
Mhm.
right? The archives of sexual behavior in a study of 229 convicted child molesters found that 86% identified as homosexual or bisexual.
Okay,
Um,
Joe, I got. Sorry, Joe, I got to pull it up now. So, yeah, if you allow me to share the screen.
yeah, blow
All
that
right,
up a
so
little bit for me. Blow that up a little bit
yeah,
so
I'm
we can
gonna.
see it.
Hang on. Is this
There we go. That's
better?
good.
This is better.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's perfect.
Okay.
All right. So
Monogamy versus.
monogamy. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Monogamy versus promiscuity. Sexual partners outside of a relationship. Lest anyone suffer the illusion that any equivalency between the sexual practices of homosexual relationships and traditional marriage exists. The statistics regarding sexual fidelity within marriage are revealing. Married couples. A nationally representative survey of 884 men and 1,288 women published in the Journal of Sex Research found that 77% of married men and 88% of married women had remained faithful to their marriage vows. A 1997 national survey appearing in the Social Organization of Sexuality, sexual practices in the United States found that 75% of husbands and 85% of wives never had sexual relations outside of marriage. A telephone survey conducted for Parade magazine of 1,049 adults selected to represent the demographic characteristics of the United States found that 81% of married men and 85% of married women reported that they had never violated their marriage vows. Male homosexuals. Research indicates that the average male homosexual has hundreds of sex partners in his lifetime. The Dutch study of partnered homosexuals, which was published in the journal AIDS, found that men with a steady partner had an average of 8 sexual partners per year. Bell and Weinberg, in their classic study of male and female homosexuality, found that 43% of white male homosexuals had sex with 500 or more partners, with 28% having 1,000 or more sexual partners.
Wow.
In their study of the sexual profiles of 2,583 older homosexuals published in the Journal of Sex Research, Paul van de Ven et al. Found that the modal range for number of sexual partners ever of homosexuals was 101 to 500. In addition, 10.2% to 15.7% had between 501 and 1,000 partners. A further 10.2% and 15.7% reported having more than 1,000 lifetime sexual partners. A survey conducted by the homosexual magazine Genre found that 24% of respondents said that they had more than 100 sexual partners in their lifetime. The magazine noted that several respondents suggested that, including a category of those who had more than 1,000 sexual partners. Commitment in homosexual couples. Even in those homosexual relationships in which the partners consider themselves to be in a committed relationship, the meaning of committed or monogamous typically means something radically different than in heterosexual marriage. A Canadian study of homosexual men who had been in committed relationships lasting longer than 1 year found that only 25% of those interviewed reported being monogamous. According to study author Barry Adam, gay culture allows men to explore different forms of relationship besides the monogamy coveted by heterosexuals.
Okay, so that's all I'm
Wow.
gonna. That's all
Wow.
I'm gonna. Yeah,
Oh,
so that's all I'm gonna pull out. But I'll read the rest of that in the stream. So
So
yeah,
what
guys.
is
I mean,
so wait. It's only talking about in the sense between the married couples. It doesn't speak statistically of the heterosexual like non-married couples, but wouldn't that average into the number overall? Because I
I
mean, I know the marriage, because cause that seems. I get what they're saying by overall marriage. That's a way to tell because again, it's married by man and woman, but that's not. That's like only part of the whole thing because it's not including single people who are having sex. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not like
yeah.
because that's what I wanted to look. I was hoping that would be in there because I just got the link for it. But yeah, it's only for the marriage. It sucks.
Yeah,
Indeed.
well, this one guy. This actually also talks about transactional relationships. So yeah, short committed one, short committed relationship. Okay, sorry. It talks about short committed relationships or transactional relationships. So yeah, it doesn't just speak about marriage too. I only decided to bring out that one part just to share a few. But I will be having a stream of that. I'll be reading the entire precept just dedicated to that. I guess if I'm done earlier, I'll have an elevator hour and open mic. So yeah, but the precept does talk about transactional relationships or short term committed relationships. So yeah, this doesn't also only speak about married couples too.
the
Yeah.
part to whole fallacy, which no one here ever made. I mean, this guy is so desperate, this lizard character, to for Christianity. All of them are for Christianity to embrace his behavior. It's ridiculous. Um, the the extent he would go. This is remember this is individual here is teaching that the Bible does not condemn homosexuality. It's not even a sin. So, but he's saying we're guilty of the part to whole fallacy. Did anyone here during this live stream ever claim that every homosexual was a pedophile?
No,
No?
No, no.
Anyone?
no,
No?
not at all.
Cog? No? No. So no part the whole fallacy, lizard. Go back to your hole.
I mean, ain't that the fallacy of composition which nobody made here? Like just because you have a bunch, yeah, I think just because you had some homosexuals become are pedophiles, then we're basically just staying in that spectrum. We're not saying all homosexuals are pedophiles. I mean, I'm
And
not that pal.
Technically,
the
they're pedophiles if they touched themselves when they were younger. Dude, that's a
oh
joke.
Jesus Christ.
Then again, that makes everyone a pedophile.
But speaking of the New York slimes, they continue to make statements and editorials and articles that this is a crisis, a pedophile crisis, but it's not. It's been a homosexual crisis all along. 80% of victims um, of the priest mentioned, Wildhart mentioned the priest, right? Remember Wildhart, sexist, racist, homophobic, xenophobic. Um, they're the 80% of their victims are most of them are prepubescent. Okay, that's pedophilia. Um, most gays are not molesters, however. Most molesters have been gay. That's a fact. Most gay or most gay priests are not molesters, I should say. Most gay priests, even though they shouldn't be in that position or that office, they're not molesters, but most molesters have been gay. That's a fact. Okay. That came from the Huffington Post, by the way.
That's a
See, I'm
bad
getting
source. It's a bad
it
source.
is. It is a bad source. It's a liberal source. But the point I'm making is that I'm not getting these statistics from Christian sources. Because as soon as you cite something from a Christian source, oh well, they're Christian. That's why they're saying that. Their sexist, homophobic, racist. So that's why I'm only giving you what your studies
Get
say.
it, get it from an Islamic source, and then see what happens.
I'm giving you what your studies say. Okay.
I mean, it's like I'm saying I hate junk food as a whole, but yet I eat Cool Ranch Doritos.
Well, Doritos are not really considered junk food.
Yeah, technically corn is a
Yeah.
staple, so yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I'm considered healthy then. If any of you say some otherwise, I'm gonna mess. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
well,
now
you got to
he's
give it
saying
MLG in anytime, Boki.
Yeah,
now
I'm
now
gonna
it's
give
the
you
lizard. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Boki.
this all new, brand new Cool Ranch Doritos
Where's
breakfast
your
for
Mountain
gaming
Dew?
champions.
Cool Ranch Doritos. That's breakfast right there.
That's yeah.
Some orange juice. But now Lizard is saying uh, he did so long ago. It's always what I did long ago, a long time ago. Right, just like
We said not that long ago. You need to learn to read.
oh, not that long ago. Okay, not that long ago, but I bet you it's a long time ago. No, I never say that all. Even when I talk about blacks, even Jesse Lee Peterson prefaces his statements with "not all, not all." So I don't know where he's getting this fallacy from. It's the defense. He's on the defense because he can't defend this behavior scientifically. He can't prove that it's normal, natural, healthy, or biblical. So the only recourse he has is to say, "Oh, you're just trying to say you're like Wildheart. You're just trying to talk about gay people. Or you want to label all gays. No one ever said all gays. We're just giving you the
Um,
facts."
Jill, what if someone argued that the term arsenokoitai has a very dubious definition when it comes to an application of homosexual pairings and would primarily be used for pedophilia and pedestry and whatnot?
Well, I've done some research on um, that word, and I could only determine from the scholarship
Mm.
that the word could be used to describe every single behavior or relationship outside of a virgin man and a virgin woman.
Okay,
So just like
so
with porneia, it's
yeah,
the same thing. Um,
yeah.
it anything that was not. This is why when Jesus was asked a similar question about divorce, he went back to Genesis.
Mm,
Anything that is not one virgin man and one virgin woman is a sin.
mm.
Well,
That's
that's
it.
not necessarily inherently true.
That is biblically true.
No, I mean, if they remarry, that's not true because then they're not a virgin. So why would they be allowed to be remarried in that case?
Well,
Again,
okay. Well, you
bad argument.
you're talking about marriage and remarriage. Yeah, that.
Remarriage is still
Yeah, it
marriage.
right. But what I'm talking about fornication, and of course you
Well, it
get
would be
remarried.
technically fornication after you got married, and I guess if you didn't remarried, if you kept having
No,
sex,
it
that would be in a
no
sense
bill. No,
fornication.
Moses said you can write a bill of divorcement. So the Bible allows for divorce and remarriage. What the Bible doesn't allow for is fornication. Anything that is not a man and a woman, I'll say, because you're right. You do have me remarriage, so they're not virgins. Um, but anything outside of that was condemned: bestiality, homosexuality, pedophilia. All of those things would not be considered to
Oh
be
yeah, marrying prostitutes, Hosea.
marriage.
That's a big one. Yeah, Hosea there, Jill. What about Hosea? You just got owned by the
Look, if you
Bible.
if you want to follow after God's if you want to follow after God's example, his object lesson, and to show how filthy Israel was, yet he's still married to us. I'm gonna use us because we're true Israel. If you want to be a Hosea, you go right ahead. But I told God that I'm not Hosea. Don't try to play that game with me. You did that to Hosea. Well, God had his prophets do a lot of weird things, didn't he? Like Hosea wasn't the only prophet that God had do some weird things. So
Well,
he
when
had.
you exegete, sorry to disturb. Well, when you
Right.
exegete the text, there is actually a hidden answer behind what happened. Like, for example, which prophet commanded she bears to go after a gang of dangerous boys again? Was it
Well,
Elijah?
it
Not
wasn't
Elijah.
it? They didn't
Elijah, yeah.
command them. God sent them.
It was yeah, I know.
Elijah, yeah.
Because if you people like to
Elias. Yeah.
argue, oh, why did God send a couple of she bears to maul innocent children? When in actual fact, when you go into the context, we're talking about God protecting a covenant broker from a dangerous gang of people, which is why he sent them, and to maintain the fact that his covenant would be still passed on to pagan nations who did not submit to him. So yeah, that's all I've
Yeah,
got to say.
the children were like the worshippers of Baal.
Yeah, they were thugs. Nowadays, they would
Essentially.
be like thugs.
They'd
And
be like 19-year-old hooligans running
yeah,
about causing mischief. Like
yeah.
the 1950s type of hooligans, right? Nah, wise guys, yeah.
Or a BLM gathering.
See, again, this is why Jesus takes us back to the beginning. Whenever you have a question about men and women, go back to the beginning, and that's how God intended it to be. Um, you can't use God instructing Hosea to marry a whore as an excuse as to why you can marry a man if you're a man. That's not a prescription. That's descriptive of what God was doing in the land at that time to make a point. And he made an object lesson out of poor Hosea. But that's not a prescription. We don't search for prostitutes. We're Christians looking for a wife. We don't go to Hooker's Row because of Hosea. That's not okay. That's not a prescription for marriage, genius. All right. The prescription is found in Genesis. Now I know you was just joking when you said that, Todd. Lizard's not joking here. He really does believe that that's going to
You
work
could
on
go marry
Justin.
a prostitute.
I mean, the context in Hosea was is that when King Ahab fell into the how do I say this? He fell into the temptations of practicing idolatry along with the multitudes. And what happened was is that the ones who didn't want to practice, they were being either phased out or they were being killed by their own because of the kind of moral compasses that they took from the multitudes. And so Hosea found himself a prostitute and married her. Not saying that that is what you should do. I mean, what business do you have with a prostitute, especially when the Bible says that prostitutes are nothing more they're basically just worth a loaf of bread. They're basically what you would call staple. So from there, that's where I learned that you gotta higher your standard. But anyway, going back, it was because Hosea wanted to have a people separate from the Jews who also practiced paganism along with the multitudes. So what he did was, okay, I'm gonna buy you, and then I'm gonna marry you, and I don't want you fooling around since I know the nature of you harlots, because I want you to be a people set from the other peoples that we have here. So basically, Hosea was like, it's kind of like it's kind of there are still a few Jews out there that follow God faithfully and not being the duplicitous worshiping idols and God at the same time, or leaving God and actually worshiping idols. I mean, and during that time, Judah was basically under siege by the Chaldeans that time. So yeah, it was a pretty messed up situation too.
That kind of
So
speaks to.
Hosea had to do
Sorry.
things that were to mitigate some things. I read that before, but I gotta get back to it. But as far
I
as
was gonna
I know,
say that
that's
that kind of reminds me of today's society with you have all these, women and sometimes men partaking in the online prostitution. The
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans, yeah, OnlyFans essentially, and all that. It's like, well, if men were more responsible, I know these women do that, but again, if they're out looking for the same thing, then how clean are they looking at all these women, right? Like you'll have some of these gross guys that like some women will delete their whole porn stuff, right? But yet guys will still be gross and go after the same woman. Obviously, she doesn't want to be on there, but they'll still seek her out instead of respecting her wishes and leaving her be. Like the problem starts with us just as much as it is, with their error, and that we need to look at ourselves in that. And like if men are they're single and they're not looking, if like, well, look what you're looking at the same time, right? Like if you're looking at that, well, if you don't, if try to find a woman that's decent, and but then again, it goes in that most of them are probably already taken in the same sense. They're already provided for and all that. So it gets really weird in the dynamic of like a single man looking at that they're already invested in like another man's thing. And they don't even know that because they're out looking, the promiscuity of all. It's such a odd state of affairs when it comes to this, man.
Well, Tog, the one biblical precedence that I could give is actually the situation between David and Bathsheba, who also happens to be Uriah's wife, and Uriah is also his David's greatest warrior, greatest general. Anyway, and pay close attention to this one. So basically, David was bored. He was supposed to be at war with the rest. He was chilling out. Then he was walking about and he saw Bathsheba taking a bath. Now the looking was the beginning of that. But just because he looked doesn't mean that's sin right away, because once you receive it, well, I mean, first comes stimulus, then you get integration, right? So there should be a response from that. Now David could have looked away, but the moment he saw Bathsheba taking a bath, like, let's just say
Well,
he
yeah,
found
covet is
it.
sentless in that
Yeah.
point. Yeah. And then it's like what
Yes.
Christ says, it's not good to covet another woman's wife. And that's it. Like David's like the prime example of that reason why not. Because look what
Yeah.
happens, and because of it, it's like fucking like no
Yeah.
wonder, yeah.
Right. So you got to be careful. Like, let's say if I were at the beach, right, and then it's unavoidable. You'll be seeing like revealing clothing, right, and then uh, in my other side, we made a joke like, if the second look is sinful, then you better make the first look good,
Count.
right?
Yeah, that's a
Right?
yeah.
So when I
It's
see a
true, right?
beautiful, if I see a woman, like, let's say she's on her swimsuit and all that stuff, and then, well, you can't escape the pokings of, like, wanting
Well,
you to wanting her to be in bed with you and all that stuff. But here's the thing, right? Like, if that thought pokes at you, then don't embrace it, because there's a difference between having passing thoughts and actually entertaining the thought. So if I saw a beautiful woman and then she walks up to me like in the beach, and then I just see her, I don't, let's say I'll do it decently, more like, wow,
well,
you look
folks, hold
beautiful.
up. Let me ask you this: Are you single or
Sure.
are you not single?
I'm single.
Well, then I'll give you two. I'll give you this, because you are single. This is the way I would look at it. You can look at any woman you'd want, but if she's a married woman, that's when your eyes should be, whoa, she's another person's man, right? She's
Yeah, you
taken
better
for.
not. Yeah, you
Yeah.
better not. Yeah, lay off,
But
dude.
if
Lay
it's a
off.
but if it is another available woman, that's fair game, buddy. Look all you want. The Bible doesn't say nothing about not looking. It only speaks about looking at another married man's wife.
Right. But even
So
so,
keep
right? I
that in
mean, I
mind.
gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even so, right? I gotta be careful of my thoughts where it says,
Well, that's
if you
usually
look
again.
at a
That's why
woman's
we. That's
lust,
why. That's the thing about wearing the ring, right? Because if you're wearing the ring, you know that that's the whole thing about it. You have the ring on. Okay, they're married. They're taking for. I shouldn't be thinking that
yeah,
was a mistake.
yeah,
So
you
yeah.
better lay your eyes off. You better lay your eyes off of it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
That's a respect. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, basically, when it comes to complimenting women, and then, this is unavoidable nowadays. So keep it clean. Like, if you see her, and she's on her revealing outfits, just say something like, "Wow, your skin is beautiful," and then you don't look. Try not to look anywhere else, man. I mean, that's
I mean,
difficult.
I don't have to worry about that, but yeah.
Yeah. but yeah, seriously, I mean, it's all about respect, right? And you better not
Well,
like,
see,
you know, like
here's the
when you
weird
look
thing.
at her, like when you look at her, make sure the idea itself is genuine. Like you're really just complimenting her. You're not having other thoughts in your head too that you are embracing right now. So again, if a nice looking lady came to me, and then I saw her, and then she looks hella fine, I would just say, "Wow, you look beautiful. Your skin's beautiful." That's all I'll say. But I'm not gonna catcall her or anything.
No, you
That's
can't say your skin is beautiful. That would be considered sexual harassment.
Well, that's only sexual harassment if it's only sex. It's only sexual harassment if you're ugly.
Yeah.
No,
Too bad.
if they don't like you, it's sexual harassment. If it's somebody they like, or like Snoop Dogg, or somebody famous, then
Myself.
it's
And
oh that's Snoop. That's just Snoop.
Yeah.
well, too bad I'm a handsome man. So yeah,
I'm
like
taken for already. Yeah, I'm good.
oh, awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jill, I have another question.
Yeah,
Oh shit. I
I'm
gotta
gonna
get
put the
So
going, boys.
study.
Take care.
I'm
God
gonna
bless.
all
God
right.
bless
See
you.
you. I'm gonna put the
God
study
bless
for
you.
you in the chat, Boki. Oh, somebody asked for it.
Oh, I did.
Okay, there it is. It's gonna be. I'm gonna put it in a private chat for you. Oh,
Awesome.
go ahead. What was your question?
So obviously, the Israelites were allowed to purchase slaves. What if someone wanted to make a moral argument involving the purchasing of human lives against biblical slavery? How do you respond to that?
There is no moral culpability if the person wants to be bought. If I want to work for you, M. Scotty, and you're going to, even if I say, well, you know what, Scotty, I owe you $1,000.
Hmm.
I don't have the cash, but I'll work for you for 6 weeks, and we'll consider that to be paying the debt.
A payment of a debt, yes.
That's an agreement that me and you have come to. It may not be binding. You can't go to court if I decide to back out and say he's supposed to be working for me right now. Judge, make him come back to my home and finish my driveway. The judge will just say no, it's not binding. The work aspect is not binding, but you can garnish his wages
Hmm.
to get your $1,000 back. So the idea is that it's a voluntary act. So what the
Hmm.
skeptic will try to do is they'll try to coax you into an argument, all while be it ignoring the voluntary aspect of the relationship between the owner and the quote unquote slave. They'll try to ignore that distinction because the audience, as soon as they hear slave or a topic of slavery, they're going to automatically assume involuntary servitude. They're going to assume it's almost unspoken. When you hear slave, what do you think of? Someone
Well,
being forced to work against their will,
yeah. It
right?
it depends on the
Okay.
tautology and the applied context, because the term slavery has a wide definition. It's
It
like
does,
the
yeah.
term what am I thinking of? It's like the term property. It's a very abstract term that entails a sense of belonging and ownership of something.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Right.
that's all I've got to say.
And the ownership, the extent of the ownership, even in ancient times, was I own your skill because you have a debt to be paid in full. You weren't owned by someone and you didn't have a skill like masonry, carpentry, whatever
Hmm.
you were taught. In the Jewish culture, you were taught a trade when you were 12. By the time you were 12, you were able to go on off your own and sell whatever what your trade was. Whether it's tent making, carpentry, etc. So
Hmm.
you're not just purchasing me for me uh, to sit there and do nothing. You're purchasing me because you want my labor and my skill. So that was the extent of the ownership. So the word owner and owned has to be unpacked also. Because when people say or hear the word owned today, what again? They automatically default to ownership that is of with no volition. I
Hmm.
didn't choose to be here. Someone owns me. That's a negative. Ownership is not always, or being owned by someone is not always a negative thing.
Mm.
So you just have to bring that out that these were all voluntary agreements. You don't have to call them contracts because then they'll try to get into the legally binding thing. And it's not. Work is not legally binding. We have other ways now today of making you pay, right?
Yeah.
Like garnishing your wages, putting a lien on your house. You get a court order from the judge that you have to pay, even in civil cases. You have to pay that person back. Um, so when you use give those examples and remove the involuntary voluntary distinction, or when you put it back into the picture, they tried to remove it. When you put it back into the picture, they don't have an argument. If I agree to do something, if I agree to you owning me, M. Scotty,
Mm.
the the stipulations and the extent of that ownership is still my choice. So I can call it whatever I want to call it. I could say you own me. You do own me because the Bible is correct. The what? The slave is, or the borrower is slave to the lender.
Yeah, to the
That's a
lender. Yeah,
that's an age old fact. That's a biblical fact, which means it's a fact, and it will always be a fact, even though we sophisticated the process in the 21st century.
Mm.
that's true. I mean, because I need to add something. Two things. One is that when Exodus mentions, "For he is his property," property basically means the guy is your money. So basically, you're right on that, Joe. I'm not keeping you for your life. I'm keeping you because I need your skill. I can't do this. So someone of your caliber can probably do this for me. And second,
Hmm.
another thing is that if you compare our time today and then archaic time 3,400 plus years ago, it sucked more to be a free man, because as a free man, of course, you're on your own. No one gets to tell you what to do. No one gets to tell you what to say or whatever. But during an archaic time, especially with the presence of the Amalekites, it was very it was gonna suck though, because even if, let's say, even if you did had money to sustain yourself, but there was no guarantee that you would not be met with bandits and whatnot. So, in order to make sure that being a free man is not going to suck, you basically have to go find a house or a household where you could lend your services to or to render your services to, and in that way, you could have wage, free healthcare, free shelter, and all that stuff. But all you have to do is work, and then there you go. That was slavery during at the time. But okay, fine. Slavery. Let's say let's grant the left. All right. Let's say slavery is a really bad word. Well, according to the old Hebrew hermeneutics, according to the old Hebrew, under the lexicology, the word rendered was abad. And abad means a number of things. It could mean slave, could mean worker, could mean servant. And so abad had to be used in its proper context. So if I wanted to say abad, just basically just rendering servants services, then if even if I called you slave at that time, then yeah, sure, like yeah, sure. You're not basically you're not. I mean, you're basically just a simple guy just trying to get through life, just trying to get a minimum wage. But if
Hmm.
I use abad in the context where Israel was enslaved by Egypt and they made them work rigorously, now that is something worse than chattel. I think that's antebellum slavery, which the Egyptians practiced, because when it was expressed there that they made the Israelites or Abraham's people work rigorously. So you put abad and rigorously beside each other, then that is a really good picture in how we picture slavery today. You have no wage, you get no day off. You're basically just a machine. to work for the pharaoh. You get nothing. You're very much an outcast too. You're nothing
Well,
more
it's
than
not. It's not just that with the treatment of the ancient Egyptians on the ancient Israelites. Remember, like with the context of the way we define slavery today, antebellum slavery, which involved the trading of black people from Africa along the Atlantic Triangle, was literally mere centuries ago. So that would play a massive influence as to how we would define slavery in the modern context as well.
right. And to add one more thing,
Oh, well,
to be
let me just add about Pharaoh. What he was doing was probably akin to antebellum slavery when he required the same quota of bricks, um, but did not reduce, or he didn't provide the straw for the bricks. So he was basically trying to get them to work for free. Basically, what he was doing. So that's when God's had enough and said, no, this is slavery as we would define it today. So that's what I often do. I often let them know that the word, like you said, could have been used to describe both voluntary and involuntary servitude. But as soon as you get to the point where where the person is saying, no, I don't want to do this anymore, this isn't fair, and you make them do it, that's slavery. That's what
right.
happened with the children of Israel. The children of Israel were vassals. They were workers. They were skilled, and they helped build cities. The scripture says. No, they didn't build the pyramids. The Bible doesn't say Jews built the pyramids. Stop that nonsense. They helped build cities. Okay, so they were construction workers, skilled architects, and they worked for Egypt until the Pharaoh became oppressive. That's when he says, "Let my people go." But go ahead.
Yeah. Thirdly, crap. I almost forgot. I was gonna get to my third point. Let's see. I talked about antebellum. I talked about pharaoh. I talked about. Oh yeah. Um. Again, thirdly, like going back to the context of archaic times versus times today. If you go back to the archaic times, there was no proper legislatory authority. Like everything was just, live your life at your own risk. There was no proper IRS. There was no proper employment. There was no. Well, I guess by the time until King Solomon Solomon was king, that is where he, I guess, employed or invented commerce. Some, according to some commentary, where they were waiting away from the where they were waiting away from the norm of how to get into work, which is through the mechanism of slavery or indentured servitude. Yeah, but yeah, so they had to go through that mechanism first. But until Solomon was king, he tried to move away from that. He wanted something even different. He wanted something even better. I think from that sort of commentary, he was making his way to build commerce, and the guy was rich, so he could move that one. And fourth, which I actually remember now, it was a privilege to be a slave under the Jews, right?
Yeah.
Because like unlike well, first of all, what makes the Jews stands out that you could, I mean, a slave master could be killed for the death of a slave.
Yeah.
And second, you would be cared for. You would have free health care, like legitimately speaking. And then you wouldn't be killed or be punished for like ridiculous reasons. Not like the code of Ur or Mesopotamia or whatever. It was very, I mean, very much you. I mean, you weren't just part of the you don't just work for the household, but you're also part of the household. So basically, you're also family to the guys. And yeah, you have the year of jubilee. You got, I mean, you could get a day off. You have, and then yeah, and then you could even be richer than your masters too.
Mm.
I mean, and then, or you could even choose to stay with your master because you probably grew had a good mutual understanding together. That hey,
Well,
hey, buddy, why don't I work for you forever? Because
yeah.
there's no way I
Well,
can
the
survive.
reason why they stayed with their masters often is because it was a very similar situation to nowadays what we would call asylum seeking. There was literally nowhere else for them to go because out
Right.
there they have dangerous terrain. They have literally people raiding, hunting, raping as they please. So which do you think is going to be more preferable? Out there where you can risk trying to set yourself up, but unfortunately may end up getting captured or killed or Lord knows what else? Or do you remain with your master as an adopted member of a family, as a slave in the Jewish society at the time?
Yeah, I'd rather be a slave but still be counted as family there,
Yeah,
rather
which
than
is
being out there.
yeah,
Because
which
if
is
I were
why.
to be go on. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, dude.
All right. I mean, let's take like I said, right? I mean, to be a free man, well, the pros is you do whatever it is you want, you do whatever it is you please. The cons is that same privilege also applies to the people around you, especially if they're, crazy psychopath bandits who are out who don't care about your guts other than what you have in your pockets or what you possess. So, as a free man, I will practice my freedom to decide that I will rather work for my master forever. In a sense that I don't have to be out there being running the risk of being raided. Like again, that time was really archaic. Anything goes, dude. It's not like right now that we have like cops patrolling
Yep.
all over the city. We don't have like insurances.
Yep, there
You
was no
don't you don't,
security,
you
there
don't
was no central
yeah,
banking, there was none of that. Like we
none
get a
of that.
7-Eleven every corner, but back then,
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like that. Yeah. You're right. No 7-Eleven in every corner. So where the heck are you gonna go then, right? What are you gonna have for dinner? Like the freaking desert dust or something? I don't know. The desert sands? We can make soup out of that or a cereal. I don't know. Like, I mean, it was an Eastern. It was a mid Eastern desert out there. It wasn't always grasslands and oases out there, dude. And you'd wonder where these people came from, and then you'd wonder why they'd raid because basically the whole place is an arid wasteland there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, I yield.
Yep. And this is why I say, to oversimplify biblical slavery, it was an ancient adoption system that helped save lives from contemporary societies such as the Amalekites and whatnot.
That's true. That's true. The Amalekites don't really care about you. Canaanites too. I mean, they resemble the same. They resemble the same behavior of the Amalekites, but the difference between them was that Canaan was a city. Amalekites were nomads. They travel. Anyone they see, or any city that they can pillage, that was their life. They always traveled in packs, or let's say, I would even go as far as to say that they are a moving city, a moving tribe, right? Anything that they would kill, raid, and pillage everyone around them. And yes, they were also guilty of unsparing bloodshed. So if you're going to call God a genocidal maniac, wait till you hear about the
Oh, they
Amalekites.
have to conflate the definition of genocide to do that. Like genocide means the killing of an indelible group membership. Unfortunately, when we exegete the Bible, such actions are inconsistent with the definition of genocide. So no, there are no genocides in the Bible. And combine that with the fact of hyperbolic war language or victory speech, but it doesn't really help the case. The reason why the Amalekites were wiped out was because they were a sinful group of people who did not stop pillaging. It wasn't because they were Amalekites or for any other ethnic reason, like sexuality or what other else thing. It's because they were sinful and had to be removed because they were that dangerous.
Yeah, they were just pure evil people. They wouldn't stop. So the idea that they wouldn't stop. So the idea that you would complain God wiping out a bunch of people, not for their race, but if you're going to say God is evil, then he rids off a bunch of people that are evil. Then, like, what's the problem, dude? And if it were genocide too, man, you don't just look at the tribes, man. you don't just look at tribes or ethnicity, dude. Like if you want real genocide, like in the eyes of God, you'd have to wipe out the entire human race.
Mm.
But I don't know. Maybe that's
Or
just
at
like
least,
a
yeah,
hypothetical
yeah.
prediction.
So the race, God is a racist because he's spirit and we're human, so he's racist against humans. I get it. Makes sense. So that's Wildheart's argument. He tried to come back in. Wildheart, I'm not letting you back in until you let me on your stream, and then I'll open up the room for you. But that's Wildheart's argument. God is just genocidal maniac, and then we ask him to define genocide, and then he learns that it has to be a targeted, like you said, an ethnic group, and then we say, well, which ethnic groups did he target? And he'll say, "Oh, the Amalekites." And I said, "Well, he also targeted the Jews. He targets all groups who sin against him." So the crime was sin, not your ethnicity, and that goes
Yes.
for the people today, or then, and also people today. So remember, these are the same people, Boki, who are arguing that blacks are being arrested because they're black, right? So it's the
It's
same.
Wow.
It's the same spirit. It's the same spirit.
Yep.
Yes.
Because they
It's a
don't
classic
like
double
who's
standard.
doing right, because they don't like who's doing the arresting, the white male, the white police officer, and they
Hmm.
want to demonize, just like they want to demonize the Jewish people in the Bible, because they hate God and they hate the Bible and they hate the people of the book. They're
Yeah.
going
I
to
mean,
suggest that these wars were unjust. Well, you have to prove that. Now, if they could prove that the Jews made all this stuff up about sacrificing children, bestiality, homosexuality, which they accept as normal and natural and healthy anyway, so they're not going to think that's a justification for war. But if they want to accuse the Jews or the God of the Bible of an unjust war and therefore genocide, because if you don't have a reason other then you're attacking somebody, probably just for a land grab. Maybe not even because of their race, because you want to take them out because you want their land, right? That's usually how most wars are started,
Mm.
because someone wants the land or someone wants the resources from another country. So
right.
that would be an unjust war according to our standards. You need to demonstrate that.
Mm.
So push them on that. Make them prove that this is an unjust war. We have archaeological finds, and mass graves have been excavated of children in these regions. So
Mm.
the Jews didn't just make this up just to go to war because they wanted to wipe out another tribe that was a tribe other than themselves, or ethnic cleansing, right?
Yes.
Indeed.
So you have to make them prove unjust war. They're gonna suggest, because their hearers, their listeners are going to be listening, and they're gonna already be assuming unjust, right? Just like every time
Yeah.
a black person gets arrested, it's
Mhm.
unjust, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Because they're liberals. That's why.
yeah. Well, even if they were to make that argument, wouldn't also the appearance of Canaanites in the New Testament debunk them on that?
Doesn't matter, because it's an attempt to wipe out another group,
Mm.
right? You may not be successful. Hitler wasn't successful, was he? No. There were Jews, right? There were Jews after his mass suicide, or genocide. Excuse me.
Mm.
So the very attempt, is enough to accuse the God of the Bible of genocide, or the Jews, but for example, or Jews of the Jewish leaders, the Caleb's and the Joshua's, etc. So they have to be, if they're going to accuse, they have to be able to demonstrate that this was a unjust war. We certainly have archaeological support for that it was just. Because if there were a regime today systematically killing baby, oh wait a minute, that's the United States. If there was a regime today systematically killing children in the name of their God, or in the name of King Jong Un, or whatever his name is, unless it's abortion, we would come over there and we'd wipe them out. Or at least we used to be that type of country. I don't know what we are under Biden, but if we had found out that Jim Kyung Yung was systematically killing children, uh, uh, and those people had, cried out for help, for the United States to come help, we would come. I would think that we would get up, we would mount up our vehicles and or fly over there and help those people, right? I would think that's what America would do, or at least I would hope, right? So why, when the Jewish people decide, or when God decides to take action against these groups, he's somehow considered a genocidal maniac?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I really like, I really want. I mean, could you guys like pull out the actual how genocide is viewed in the Bible, or and then we make a comparison between the dictionary, and because it would be useful too. I mean, I know you guys were discussing about it, but you gotta give this slow man a do this slow man a favor here. I'm pretty slow sometimes, so yeah.
I don't
So
think the word genocide existed. I don't. I think it was. I think it's a relatively modern term.
yeah, I guess yeah. You know what? It's basically a translation of the English language. But the thing is, you these translate. I mean, I'm channeling midnight here. I'm sorry. You're basically yeah, you're basically translating a word taken from a dead Hebrewic language into English, and even the Hebrew. I mean, because it's so dead, you would have to try and parse out which is the best way to render these sayings, because nobody speaks that language anymore. It's a dead language. It's a dead vernacular. And you're right. Genocide is a modern term,
Yeah, they
right?
just hoisted upon the God of the Bible because they're doing it, like I said, for a couple of reasons. Because they're assuming unjust war. You wouldn't call fighting against Germans and wiping out the Nazi regime. You wouldn't call that genocide, even though we're
Right.
attacking Germans, right? And they're all
Mhm.
German, right? Because it's a just war. So to cut it, to nip that argument in the bud, make them prove it's an unjust war, because it's just so happened to be that they were of a particular ethnic group. They did not go to war or start a war because they didn't, or they wanted to wipe out a particular ethnic group.
Right. Jill, one more thing. Concerning war with the Amalekites, I actually have some interesting commentary here, if you allow me to share it
Yeah,
too.
sure. If you want to share your screen, go ahead. Paul
Yeah. I
Capon
mean,
wrote a great book on this issue or this topic called "Is God a Moral Monster?" I would suggest reading his
yeah, I
work
would
as
take a
well.
look at that too. Could you
Is
guys see
God?
it? We know First Samuel 5:3, right? The battle against the Amalekites, kill everything, including children. So yeah, a clear radical command to destroy Amalek. Now Amalek is basically the leader of the Amalekites. Well, Amalek, everyone that follows Amalek's example, pure evil. So Samuel also said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, oxen, sheep, camel, and donkey." Now, concerning this one, this is the one thing they like to focus on, because yeah, look at your God. He likes children. Well, here's the thing, right? Number one, just because God does one thing at a certain time doesn't mean it's right for all things. Because if you think about it, again, the Amalekites were nomadic. They travel. They travel. They band together. They travel. So that's why I call them a moving city, because they would go anywhere. Now, I guess the killing of the infants and the nursing child would be to spare them from the life ahead. From the life ahead, like where are they gonna go? Like how are they gonna be sustained throughout the desert? And then even if the soldiers took them in, like there's no guarantee that these infants and children would not act after would not act after their parents. I'm not saying they're
Hmm.
sinful just because this is what their parents used to do, but there is that original sin, the tendency to be like these people. Now, I wouldn't
Yeah, they,
say
they
that
most
all.
likely they most likely would have avenged their parents' death.
Yeah,
And in
exactly.
tribal warfare,
Mhm.
you're going. I mean, just very up until maybe modern times.
Mhm.
If you read, I mean, liberals, skeptics, atheists read these stories all the time about ancient times and avenging the death of your father, right? That's unheard of today, but that's how it was just a few hundred years ago. So
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and one more thing. I don't. I mean, I made this statement before. All Amalekites are Amalekites, but not all Amalekites are Amalekites. Because given that the Lord gave them a grace period of like 400 years, and a lot of things can happen. A lot of things can happen in 400 years. Like we don't even know. We don't even know if these. I mean, every single Amalekite was killed. Like in some scholarly sources, some of the Amalekites actually moved to, might have traveled outside of their tribe. They might have gone elsewhere, and a lot of
Right.
them. I mean, most of them, like according to some scholarly sources, I mean, a number of them were actually in Petra. And Petra was basically, like what you would call a city with of religious freedom. You can worship any idol or god you want. So some of them were in Petra, and according to that same source too, that is where they argue that that is where Muhammad the prophet basically was born from, right? So yeah, not all of it wasn't complete genocide. I mean,
Hmm.
so yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't
So
complete genocide. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
right. So the Jews, just like the Jews, these other groups were nomadic groups. So
Mhm.
the skeptic wants to us to believe that everyone in these boundaries that the Lord of the Bible, our
Mhm.
Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that everyone in these boundaries, this is where all the Amalekites lived, and there were no other Amalekite groups outside of these boundaries. So this is genocide, right? Right? It's like, oh, let me just put all the Planned Parenthoods in the black neighborhood, and that's not genocide, right? Because there are whites living there also. Aha, see. So, but the if you read Paul Capan's book, A Moral Monster, it's got a moral monster. Um, you mentioned this earlier, Scotty. I don't know if it was you, Boki, but probably was you, Scotty, about the war rhetoric. Here, I think that this is probably along the lines of war rhetoric,
Right.
where they're exaggerating a bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
hyperbolic war language.
right, right.
Hyperbolic war,
Uh,
right?
yeah. So when I say I'm going to destroy you in Madden 2022, John Football Madden. I don't know if you guys are into that. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that I'm going to come to your house and turn your body into antimatter, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so this was just how people spoke. Even remember the movie 300?
Oh yeah, I
Our
remember the.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
our arrows will blot out the sun. Really? So I mean, they watched this stuff on television in Hollywood, depicting how things were back then and how people spoke back then, and they read the Bible, and it's like all of that just goes right out the window because they
Yeah.
hate the God of the Bible. That's why. So that's what Romans 1 teaches, right? They're
Hmm. Hmm.
suppressing the truth in their unrighteousness. If the Bible is true, they're unrighteous. So they must make the Bible not true.
Let me add in something also. They recognize God, but they retain God, but not as God, and they were ungrateful.
Hmm.
So
That's the
that is a
context, yeah.
byproduct of that one. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's why they suppress the word in they suppress the truth in unrighteousness,
Right.
because when they recognize God, they didn't retain God as God. So
Hmm.
them defaming the truth is a byproduct of just that.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so we're getting a bit sidetracked, so I'm just going to continue on. So, anyway, Samuel also said to Saul, this was a message from the spiritual leader of Israel to the political and military leader of Israel. The message was clear: punish what Amalek did to Israel, utterly destroy all they have, and do not spare them. God clearly told Samuel to tell Saul to bring a total judgment against the Amalekites. Utterly destroy. This Hebrew verb harem is used 7 times in this account. The idea of total, complete judgment is certainly stressed. How he laid wait for him on the way when he came up from Egypt. This explains why the Amalekites should be judged so completely. Centuries before this, the Amalekites were the first people to attack Israel after their escape from Egypt in Exodus 17. Hundreds of years before, the Lord said he would bring this kind of judgment against Amalek. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this for a memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called its name, The Lord is my banner, for he said, because the Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Wow, so this is basically like kill everybody who is left here or still following his footsteps. So the Amalekites committed a terrible sin against Israel. When the nation was weak and vulnerable, the Amalekites attacked the weakest and most vulnerable of the nation. Deuteronomy 25:18. They did this for no reason except violence and greed. God hates it when the strong take cruel advantage over the weak, especially when the weak are his people. Talk about natural selection, right? So, though this happened more than 400 years before, God still held it against the Amalekites because time does not erase sin before God. Among men, time should erase sin, and the years should make us more forgiving to one another. But before God, time cannot atone for sin. Only the blood of Jesus Christ can erase sin, not time. I agree. In fact, it was time that the Amalekites were mercifully given. Okay? God is not a moral monster, guys. Look at this. The Amalekites were mercifully given opportunity to repent, and they did not. So they made their own bedrock. They made their own deathbed. God gave them grace, and this is what they chose to do. So don't blame God for their demise and predicament because this is what they did. And you'd have to be a backwards thinking sore loser that you went out there, looked for trouble, and then you whine when you're given trouble. So we go to letter C. Now go and attack Amalekite. God could have judged Amalek directly as he did against the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. But God had a special purpose in this for his special nation, Israel. He wanted it to be a test of obedience for Saul and all of Israel. Plus, since Amalek's sin against Israel was a military attack, God wanted to make the judgment fit the sin. When God calls people today to fight such a war judgment, God has completely different call for Christians under the new covenant than he did for Israel under the old covenant. Though God no longer calls his people to take up arms instruments of his judgment, it does not mean that God has stopped judging the nations. But we cannot suppose for a single moment that the judgment of the nations is to be altogether relegated or appointed to that final day. Throughout the history of the world, the nations have been standing before Christ's bar. Nineveh stood there, Babylon stood there, Greece and Rome stood there, Spain and France stood there, and Great Britain is standing there today. One after another has had the solemn word depart, and they have passed into a destruction which has been absolute and terrible. Last for the lunch, let's see. Utterly destroy is explained with the following parallel phrases to mean slain, the inferior being put last in each member, and the both and end expressing complete destruction without exception. Harem means a bunch of things. So yeah.
Good
All right, I'll
stuff. Good
yield there.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've also got something else of my own to show. It's a bit more creative and abstract, and it's something that I think Jill would never expect on his channel. But I've got a comic that I've got right now that I enjoy reading that I think kind of well illustrates how life was back then. And not only that, but also could
Okay.
help with understanding with the infants thing. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead and share. And then I'm going to shut it down. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Sure.
Sure.
But this was only supposed to be like an hour
Okay.
of. There it is. Oh, I
Can
see
you
it. Oh,
see?
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
that's hilarious.
Yep. So
See if you can blow
Metabarons.
it up a little bit.
Sure. There we go. Metabarons Genesis Kustaka. So to
There we go.
explain the context of what's going on here, there are two tribes on this planet, and you have the Kustakas and you have the Amakuras. They both hold to a very strict way of honor called the Bushitaka, which is obviously inspired by the real life Bushido. To explain briefly what happens on prior with the story before, the a leader of the Amakuras effectively rapes the princess of the Kustakas, and she ends up pregnant with this child right here. What else? Yes, so the Amakuras are wiped out, leaving the Kustakas. So remember, this child is a not only Kustaka but also part Amakura as well. So they're trying to drive out his Amakura nature, like driving out a demon. So obviously, as you can see here, this child was trained in warfare from a very early age, like how the Amalekites or any other child back then in those ancient societies would have been done. Because back then, children were viewed as future soldiers for war and people who maintained honor for tribes. Speaking of honor, obviously back then, ethics was to honor your tribe. And a way that if your tribe was wiped out, the honorable thing to do would be to get some payback. So
Revenge.
yeah, this child obviously believes he's a Kastaka and he's being trained in warfare. Let's skip along. And obviously he tries to appoint the child as a noble within the clan. Unfortunately, he bears disgust towards the child. What an abomination! He is the living image of Divadal, his infamous begetter. My hatred is still fierce despite all the years. Blah blah blah. So yeah, eventually he ends up being shamed. Look what happens eventually. His caretaker explains everything. When Daredal learned the truth from the mouth of a general, he went mad. From now on, no one will ever visit me. This place is thus a prison. That is enough, little worm. Calm yourself. Do you see what I'm trying to illustrate here? Like, now that he knows the truth about his nature, being part Amakura, he now feels a sense of dishonor, and it's very likely that he would have vast bloodshed. The only reason why Daredal is calmed is that the general gives his own daughter to Daredal. So, yeah. Stop sharing.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So yeah, I thought of providing a comic book view to
mm,
help illustrate your point, because I know you may not have a very good look at not very best view of comics, but they're still like illustrated and they do have powerful stories in them. So yeah, that hopefully explains like the infant side of things, because infants would have immediately picked up the swords to take on revenge against the tribe that wronged them. So yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a fact. And they know that. They know about tribal warfare. They read about it. Even right here in North America, there you have the same thing with the tribal the indigenous groups. I'm gonna do I promised the Raging Atheist that I would do a video uh, chronicling the wars in North America before the white man arrived, because you know the narrative. It was peaceful. Everybody was smoking
It
peace
wasn't.
pipes
It
and
wasn't.
singing "Kumbaya," holding hands. All the
It
tribes
wasn't.
got along.
There were
No,
tribes that hated each other far worse than the white man. I know that's a
exactly,
fact.
exactly. So we're not that far removed from that type of society yet. When they read a book 2, 3, 4,000 years old, they want to apply modern standards and modern warfare standards to tribal warfare, which is anachronistic, I think we would say.
It's presentism. It's presentism
Presentism,
and
right?
double standard at its hardest form.
Exactly. Yeah. But I want to shift gears a little bit before I go, and I want to show you guys a video that I clipped and hear your response on it. This was from Brojo. Now, Brojo has banned me from his channel, of course, um, after answering all of their questions and dispelling all of their myths about the Bible. I was no longer needed. So they went and looked for Christians who perhaps, like Iranic, who couldn't answer what God's going to do in the future because his God doesn't know. So I'm no longer allowed on Brojo's channel. So I clipped this, and there's no one available to answer him because Irenic's God is impotent. He
Yeah,
can't do
Irenic.
anything.
Yeah,
Uh,
Irenic holds to emergentism. So ironically, he calls himself a Pelagian, meaning that hard works get you into heaven, which is a load of shit. Excuse my French. But however, the God he serves is ontologically insufficient of maintaining such morals, even if they
right.
were secure, which they aren't.
Yeah, his God is incapable. He's not capable of answering questions because he's not a Bible believing Christian. So how can he answer your questions about the Bible? But anyway, so to help you out, bro, Joe, even though you don't really want my help, because on Judgment Day you want to be able to say to our Lord and Savior, who you will stand before, you want to be able to have an excuse. So you really don't want help.
Ja,
They
Fernando.
really don't want answers. They want the answers they want to hear, but they really don't want answers from the scriptures because they do. I really do believe that most skeptics do believe that they will stand before God, or there might be a chance they will. They want to have something in their back pocket to say, you see, this is why I didn't believe because no one answered this question or no one satisfactorily helped me with this issue. That's what they're hoping for. That's their hope. We have our hope in Christ Jesus. That's their hope. Their hope is that no one will be able to answer their questions. But I'm gonna let you hear this. So that's why most atheists don't allow me on on their shows because I can answer the questions, and they really don't want the answer. They would rather surround themselves with Christians like Richard Madsen, who we can't even call him a Christian, who really are not going to answer from the scripture. They're just going to give you another one of their opinions because they feel comfortable with a Christian that has an opinion rather than a Christian that biblically will say that this is how it is. Biblically speaking, biblically and Christologically, biblically.
That just shows you guys that the only semblance of an actual atheist dominating a Christian is if that Christian is like still weak in the faith or ill-informed or didn't
Right.
go through scripture. Yeah. So
Exactly.
that is the kind of Christians that they're after. They're looking for somebody that cannot exactly sufficiently defend
Defend the faith.
themselves. Yes,
Right.
and
Defend the
I
faith.
was under that category too, and they did a good job in making me doubt my beliefs. It's like as if like I was ready to leave Christianity if these guys were right, but then
Wow.
again, I'm like, wait, am I really gonna leave God because some guy put me in his place? Like, if anything, I'm not gonna let some frauds and charismatics get into my head. I'm gonna keep trusting God. So there was this axiomatic strength I had, and of course I knew I had to back it up, but and I knew God was gonna answer for me, but He had to do it slowly because there would always be those concepts that even my stupid brain can't comprehend at the moment. But I'm channeling midnight. Darn it! So the more I kept reading, and the more I was more interested
Right.
in looking through some extra biblical resources. I've never not only have I never been able to defend my faith more properly, but they have led me closer to Christ, and they tell me, "Wow, this isn't what Christ is after all. In fact, this is what Christ is." And I agree with what Dr. Kenny said in his book. We only know God through negation. So if this is who he is in scripture, then I can parse out what he really is not. So yeah, I mean, praise God for these people. Praise God also for you, Jill. Praise God also for you, M. Scotty. Yeah,
Great
I
goal for you
appreciate
too,
you
dude.
guys. I really do.
Thank
I
you.
really do.
Thank you, man.
But that's it. But that
Thank you
yeah.
for
But
that. That's so
yeah.
true. And I
So
do think that they did more than just try to shipwreck your faith, or they were trying to do more. They were also trying to buster their non faith or their lack of faith. Because the more people, the more Christians they can get to speak out on these issues that are confused and, like you said, maybe are not ready to give an answer, the more
Mhm.
comfortable they'll feel in their denial, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the point. So that's why you surround yourself, what did Paul said, with teachers that are going to say what you want them to say because you have itchy ears. That's what you want. You want a lie. So God sends them a lie.
Right.
And Satan is happy to take you up on your lie or your superstition. He's sitting there waiting. You want to worship a chair? Go right ahead. Satan's going to sit in it. He's going to
Right.
sit in that. He's going to sit in that chair because why? Because he wants worship.
How would that even work? Worshipping a chair? Like, I understand acknowledgement to like a platonic form, but
Well,
like what?
I mean, anything, a statue, a bird,
Yeah.
a tree, right?
I'm just wondering how would that even work?
I
Oh,
mean, God
man.
God rendered and conveyed it in the most rhetorical, comedic yet simplest form. It does nothing. Give
Right,
it eyes, give it arms, give it legs, give it genitals. It still does nothing. It doesn't do
right.
anything.
Doesn't
That's what it,
speak.
that's what it
Doesn't
did.
right. Yeah, because right, and but Satan is happy to to
Mhm.
to take the place of that idol. But here is Brojo
Right.
talking about the contradictions in the Bible or things the Bible got wrong.
Paul is before King Agrippa. Paul is in prison. I think he's being sentenced to death here, and he's kind of gotten an opportunity to plead his case. This is what I'm getting. I've only skimmed over it. Um, but if you look here, let's look at verse 21. For these causes, the Jews caught me in the temple and went about to kill me. Having therefore, this is Paul speaking, having therefore obtained help of God, I continue unto this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none other things than those, which the prophets and Moses did say should come, that Christ should suffer, and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead, and should shew light unto the people and to the Gentiles. Does anyone see the problem already? There's a couple problems here. One, besides Jesus not being the first to rise from the dead, according to the New Testament at least, Lazarus was.
What do you guys think? Jesus was not the first to rise from the dead.
Well,
Okay,
you
there's
have to read the entire. Hang on,
yeah.
sorry, just a simple exposition. I mean, you got to read the rest. All right, Jesus would be the first to rise from the dead and show light to the Gentiles to show them that this is going to be an enlightening moment for the rest of you guys. That is something that Lazarus didn't do. Of course, he was the first one to get out to be resurrected. However, what happened? Well, everyone is well. It's like saying like, "Oh wow, Jesus really is God in the flesh." I mean, he literally just told a dead man to come out of the tomb and look, he's
Yep.
alive again. That was the context of. I mean, that was. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like the partial context of Lazarus going out, and the guy is right. It's minor, but God would be the first to rise from the dead
Mm,
and show light to the Gentiles. So
Yeah.
basically, he
okay.
would be the first and only risen man to enlighten a bunch of people like, hey,
Yep.
I am God in the flesh, and
Indeed.
I am your teacher.
Like,
I am his narrative in the flesh. That's it.
like what
Scott, what do you think?
Boki and what's the takeaway literally just said in combination what I was about to say with my own answer. Like, Jesus was the hypostatic union. He was the God man, the prosopon of the Son in mortal flesh. He, under his power, he rose Lazarus. Like, Jesus was the first one to resurrect under his own power as an eternal entity who shared in the same substance, was consubstantial with the Father. Lazarus was not an eternal entity like a transcendental God. Like, literally, Jesus invoked his power to bring Lazarus as a way of showing deity and a sign to the Gentiles and the Jews that he was going to conquer death, especially at the crucifixion. So Brojo literally can't exegete to save his life.
Well,
Yeah,
he
he
does.
must be.
He does eisegete to throw it away. If that's one thing you wanna.
Well, he would
He
have to
must.
presuppose the complete human nature in Jesus.
Yeah, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, God would be the first to resurrect himself. And yeah,
Yeah.
Lazarus didn't resurrect by his own authority. Lazarus resurrected from God's
Yeah.
authority. So yeah.
And
Yeah.
Right.
also he needs to actually, exegesis is important, and not just in the same book Paul is writing, or the book of Acts. I think he's getting this from the Skeptics Annotated Bible, of
Oh God.
contradictions. That's what I just posted in the chat there. I think the Skeptics Annotated Bible. This is one of the contradictions. Acts chapter 26, verse 23, that Christ should suffer and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead. And then Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 that Christ is now risen from the dead and became or becomes the first fruits of them that slept.
Mm.
So he never actually exegeted what Paul meant by firstborn of the dead or first fruits. Okay, those are spiritual realities. He's not getting that, because the things of the spirit, to the carnal man, the Bible says it's foolishness, right? So he doesn't understand what that means to be the firstborn of the dead. It has great theological importance, and we even celebrate it every year. Um, we call it Resurrection Day. We don't like saying Easter. But the John uses a word that literally refers to birth order, or the first child born. Um, that had great significance in the Old Testament when someone was of the firstborn. So he's speaking more of preeminence, and that Christ is the prototype of the resurrection, basically. What will happen to us when we die, or when we're resurrected from the dead?
Not
Jesus
I
said.
okay. With all due respect, sir, I would not say prototype. I would in
Okay,
fact say
maybe
I would
not
in fact
prototype.
say the archetype.
Archetype. Thank you.
He is the
Thank you.
second Adam. He's the second
Okay,
Adam. He is the second basis. We
Everyone
partake
here is
in
a
him.
freaking lexicon. Everyone
that's a
here is a
better. Yeah,
freaking
Yeah.
photographer.
So definitely not a prototype. He is
that's
the
a better word. Yeah,
archetype.
archetype. Thank you. That's a better word. And so his body will, or our bodies will look like his body. Our body's not going to look like Lazarus's body. Okay, so he's not the firstborn.
Yeah.
He's not the firstborn of the dead, because he's gonna die. He died again, and he's going to be resurrected according to Christ's resurrection, not according to Lazarus's resurrection. So when the Bible says that he is the firstborn of the dead, it is saying more than that he rose from the dead. Okay.
Right.
Uh, anyone else have anything they wanted to say about the
Both of you
resurrection?
are beautiful. Well, just for closing remarks for me, both of you are beautiful lexicographers, and I wish I'd stop channeling midnight. But yeah, second of all, yeah, to close and for me to stop yapping. Yeah, don't take your salvation for granted, everyone. It's better to tow the truck than leave it in the dust. Uh, We may be wrong about conditionalism. We may be wrong about OSAS, but one thing is for sure: we still have work to do here. Just because God paid it all doesn't mean you don't do anything at all. Am I correct? There's still sanction. There's still sanctification and repentance to go about. If you say you're without sin, you are a liar. So do your best and be a good steward. I'll yield.
Okay.
There's still
Amen. Amen.
sanctification after death in Eden, in the new Eden, and even in heaven. There's still sanctification after death.
All right.
Right.
Any last words, Scotty, before I shut it down?
God bless. Thank you. This was an awesome stream. Thank you, and it was nice speaking to you again, Jill.
All right. I'll see you guys next time. Now I won't be streaming for about another maybe until June, but the next time I'm going to stream, I'm going to have to deal with this abortion issue. Um, and I also wanted to ask the question: what if Mary would have listened to The View back then, right?
Then we will all perish. We would have all perished.
You know that there were people back then that were saying, you know what, Mary, you don't even know who the father is. Why don't you take that stone over there and sharpen it?
Yeah.
You know, there were people back then that were saying that you can't give birth to a bastard child, or at least maybe they would have encouraged her to leave the camp. You know, because you're an embarrassment. You're ashamed of the fact that you had this child out of wedlock. People actually took that seriously back then. Now it's like, oh, let me make a show about a teenage mom and put it on television and glorify it. But that wasn't the case back then. So what if Mary would have had an abortion is the question that I am going to try to answer. Boy, one of my answers was, I'll just give a spoiler. Spoiler alert. Every president would have been like Biden. Every president we had in the United States would have been Joe Biden. That's one of the things that would have happened if Mary would have had an abortion, um, along with several others. Okay, I'm just joking. But I want to take a look at the virgin birth and why that's important. I also want to talk about what Rome says about the Virgin Mary and why that's wrong. Why we don't call her the mother of God. Slim Jim got offended when I said no, she's just an incubator. No offense, Mary, but you can't hear me anyway. But I think it is wrong to call Mary the mother of God. I think it causes confusion, and our God's not the author of confusion. If anything, it causes confusion. So I'm gonna be talking about that. And then the following week, again, I don't know. It's probably be in June sometime. I want to look at Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel chapter 2, the dream of the succession of nations. We know Daniel predicted the succession of nations, meaning this nation would conquer that nation, and then another nation would conquer that nation, and so on.
The statue is nothing to the mountain.
Yeah. Some people put Rome on the feet. Do you? I don't hold to Rome.
I think it's a mixture of clay and iron or steel. In fact, no, steel
Right.
didn't exist then. But yeah, it's definitely a mixture, like a reunified Rome or a unified world.
Okay. All right. I think the Bible would just suggest up until the Greeks. Maybe Rome.
I think the Greeks might have been the waist and Rome were the legs. Like
Rome
the
was the
waist
leg.
was of bronze or brass, and the legs were of iron.
Okay. Right.
If I remember,
So,
I might be wrong.
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. But some people don't have Rome in there. Some people have like Rome and Greece are the legs.
Oh.
Yeah, Roman Greece are the legs. It's partly bronze, it's partly iron because that signifies.
Didn't the Greeks
they were
use iron as
scattered.
well?
They were scattered and then they will reunite soon, kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from the Babylonians to the Medes, from the Medes to the Medo-Persians, from the
Yeah, the Persians. Yeah.
Medo-Persians to the Greeks, and then the Greeks to Rome, and so there's been a prophetic sweep of history, is what Daniel has given us, and some even say even reaching out into the future. So I'm going to be looking into that as well. Nebuchadnezzar's dream. That's the again. I don't have dates anymore on my streams because
Mm,
just you have to just return to the channel at noon. I'll be streaming at noon. If I do stream, it will be Sunday at noon,
mm.
but I'm not going to
Cool.
be able to tell you which Sunday anymore, at least until the summer. Uh, and then I want to take a look at this studies that I have found that are not allowed on Wildheart's channel. I'm gonna be taking a closer look at them. I put one of them in the side chat if you guys want to check it out. Um, you can't say certain facts, and that's a fact with these liberals. You cannot provide facts that hurt feelings, which is dangerous. Um,
Right.
that's so. This is Wild Heart today, and then Wild Heart today, transphobe, homophobe, pedophile. Then tomorrow he'll be saying something different.
Child sacriphobe. Sorry, my Anglo-Saxon English is really actually getting worse.
So that's Wild Heart today on the top there, and that's Wild Heart in the future. Um, don't tell me I was right. Tell me I told you so. 20 years from now, Boki, Scotty. Tell me, tell me I didn't tell you so. Because 20 years ago, they were telling me, you know what, one day this is going to be accepted as normal, natural, and healthy.
Mm.
Homosexuality, transgenderism is the next thing on the agenda. And I would say, no way, no way, no way. But Satan doesn't. If you allow Satan to, how I said he'll give him an inch, he'll take a mile. You give Satan an inch, he'll take your life, he'll kill you. That's
Mm.
Yeah.
basically what he does. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. All right. And if you're an image of God bearer, he's coming after you. Doesn't matter if you're an atheist or not. He just has an easier time destroying you, because you will accept the mark of the beast willingly. As a matter of fact, you'll be lining up for it. You'll be fighting over it to see who gets the last mark. You'll be fighting each other for the mark. The
Mm.
Bible says you're going to accept it willingly, gladly. So that's going to be following the um, Daniel. So it's abortion. What would happen, or what if Mary had an abortion? Then Daniel, and then um, these transmedia. This is just gone. This is insane. What they're doing, what they're trying to do. Totally insane. Putting this in front of children,
Mm.
and then when you cite a statistic on it and you try to get to the actual root of the issue, because it involves a group that they want to protect, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe. Well, sooner or later, they're going to be defending a lot more than just what they're defending now. It's only a matter of time. Do you guys want to say anything about anything before I
I mean,
close it out?
there it goes again. Well, basically, we don't know when you're gonna stream again, but tomorrow I will be doing a stream on Psalm 1:1 specifically, and another one
Okay.
for Acts 1:1. So if you want to chime in my channel, I left a link in the private chat. You could go there and
Yeah, yeah. Leave a link. That's you, right, Scotty? Oh,
no,
that's
that's
you,
me.
Aboki.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's me.
I don't even know if
Yeah.
I'm subscribed to your channel or not. Let me see.
Yeah.
I am
Gabriel
now.
says- Oh yeah, cool. All right. So
Okay.
yeah, you guys want to chime in there and give your thoughts? Yeah, I appreciate it too. Yeah, I could also use a good biblical discussion. It's been quite some time since I had a
Yeah.
biblical discussion with others too. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, M. Scotty? What are you doing on your channel?
I don't do anything on my channel. I'm just basically here to support like you guys and whatnot, like be an active participant in stuff. Like that's basically it.
All right. Good. Good. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks
Awesome.
for
We'll
joining
keep
me.
our eyes peeled for your next thing, dude. God bless.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
All right. See ya. Everyone else, if you're a Christian, God bless you. If you're not a Christian, have a bad day, have a bad life. And I'll see you guys next time.
If you reject Christ, then the moment you take your first step through the gates of hell, the only thing you will hear is all of creation standing to its feet and applauding and praising God because God has rid the earth of you.
I take full responsibility for my going to hell.